and stopped at Matthew Arnold. We will carry it forward from from the early 20th century, that is from T.S. Eliot, right on to what we call postmodern criticism. Right. So you see that let us begin where we stopped yesterday. Let us begin with Matthew Arnold. And yesterday, when I was talking about Arnold, I told you that one of the most important crises that the Victorian period was obviously undergoing was this conflict between religion and progress, which was established through modern science. So science and religion were two important entities that were in conflict with one another in the Victorian period. And you find that almost every intellectual in the Victorian age has to take a stance, They cannot reject science outright. And even if you accept science, it is difficult to reject God outright, because associated with God would be so many other things. God is the kind of moral center to the universe that we inhabit. So we are used to telling, that don't do this because God does not like it, or don't do that because God will punish you, or do this, God will reward you. So somehow we center our world around the existence of a probable, of maybe an imaginary God. So the idea of rejecting God straight away would imply the crumbling down of the moral fabric of a particular society, of a particular civilization. And so it was very difficult, to have these, for these intellectuals to establish. Kanchan Kumari, please stop presenting. So it was very difficult for these intellectuals, you see, to establish a kind of equation on how to anchor themselves, how to anchor their philosophies in the late Victorian period. And as I said, Matthew Arnold said that we do not need to be concerned about the fact whether God exists or not. Even if God did not exist, we could still carry on, the working, the functioning of society through literature. And Matthew Arnold who almost equated, he increased the sanctity, he elevated the sanctity of literature to such an extent that literature became equivalent to God for Arnold. And Arnold said that what is literature? It is nothing but the compendium of the best that has been thought and said in the world so far. So the best of everything, literature it consists of the sublimity of thoughts that has been collected throughout the history and the journey of civilization. So whatever is the best that has been thought and said in the world is contained in this field that we call literature. So literature is a compendium of moral virtue. It is a compendium of knowledge. It is a kind of mainstay. It is a kind of anchor which will help us to know what is good and bad, what is right and wrong. So literature can very well fulfill the function that has been allotted by society to God. And if literature is so important, if literature is so important that it is capable of being a moral guide for man, then of course we have to preserve the sanctity of literature. And how can we preserve the sanctity of literature? We can preserve the sanctity of literature by increasing our critical acumen. We have to be more, we have to be more agile and more observant and more watchful as critics in order to ensure that no inferior substance enters this so-called, elevated realm of literature. So we have to be conscious about the fact that the domains of literature are well guarded, so that outsiders, so that charlatans, so that people who are not actually good writers, are allowed into this realm of literature. So Arnold believed that in order to safeguard the frontiers of literature, we needed to kind of build upon the principles of criticism. And Arnold devised the idea of what he calls the touchstone method. So Arnold says that we can, judge the value of good literature by what he calls the touchstone method. And the touchstone method for Arnold, he says that we should, at any point of time, we should keep in our mind lines from great writers. So great writers, establishedly great, who are, there is no doubt about their greatness. So writers like Homer, writers like Shakespeare, writers like Milton. So we should keep in mind, works and important lines, significant lines from the significant works of such important writers always at the back of our mind. And those lines will act as a touchstone for us to judge the value of new literature. So when a new piece of literature is handed down to us and we look at it and we study it and we read it, what we need to focus on is whether, this literature that is there in our hands is capable of producing in us a similar effect, like the literature or like the lines from Milton and Homer and Shakespeare, which are there at the back of our minds. So if the effect is similar, if we are capable of being transported by this new writing in the same way that we are capable of being, sublimated and transported by the lines which are there at the back of our mind, then certainly, this will qualify for good literature. So there are many, critical riddles and critical objections to Arnold's idea of the touchstone, which we will not go into at the present, because now what we are doing is just a survey of it. But yes, that showed the kind of the kind of commitment that Arnold had for literature and for criticism also. So he believed that if we had to safeguard the domains of literature, it could be done only by building upon our idea of criticism. So criticism had to be good. Only when there was good criticism could there be good judgment about literature, and then only could the domain of literature be well guarded. So Arnold was the most important influence on, of course, the most important man of the early 20th century, that is T.S. Eliot. We know C.S. Eliot in various capacities. You know him most famously as a poet. You also must know him for his contribution to drama. He revived the form of the poetic drama, which was a form that had almost fallen extinct after the classicals. So T.S. Eliot worked to revive the poetic drama. His plays are wonderful. If you have read any one of them, The Family Reunion, you will realize the way in which Murder in the Cathedral, which is very commonly included in many syllabi across the country. So you realize that T.S. Eliot made a significant contribution to literature. However, T.S. Eliot remains a very significant cultural critic also. He remains a very significant literary critic also. So you realize that the one man who had a significant influence on T.S. Eliot in the early 20th century. Yes, Namita, slow. I think I'm going quite slow, dear. I'm going quite slow. Okay, I try to concentrate a little. I haven't said much so far. Yes. So should I use Hindi also? Will that be more convenient for you people? Yes. If you would like me to to kind of be bilingual, that would be better. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am,
Yes.
please.
Yes.
As you wish,
Yes.
as you wish.
Yes. Okay. So yes. So you realize that one of the most important हम कोशिश करते हैं, though there are terms which you will follow better if you read it in English. Okay. So you realize that one of the most important influences on on T.S. Eliot was certainly Matthew Arnold. And as I said, Matthew Arnold's idea of the importance of literature and therefore of the importance of criticism, if the domains of literature have to be well guarded, influenced T.S. Eliot in a big way. And T.S. Eliot, if you look at the critical contribution of T.S. Eliot has written a number of critical essays where he has discussed texts, where he has discussed, T.S. Eliot is most well known for reviving the metaphysical poets of the 17th century. So 17th century ke jo metaphysical poets like Donne and George Herbert, they had fallen, into obscurity. Unko apne zamane mein kisi ne padha nahi tha. And then they had been quite forgotten in the cultural history of England. And T.S. Eliot was the man who revived, the study of the metaphysicals. He read the metaphysicals and he wrote an elaborate essay on them. And today, whatever prestige the metaphysicals have is probably traced back to that essay that Eliot wrote on the metaphysical poets. So Eliot has written much in many works literary works. However, the most significant ideas that T.S. Eliot gave to literary criticism were, I believe, number one, where he talks about the function of criticism. There is an essay by T.S. Eliot which is entitled The Function of Criticism. And T.S. Eliot tries to kind of explore here that what should criticism do? After all, criticism का काम क्या है? Literary criticism को करना क्या चाहिए? So we have already, yesterday, we have already covered a number of critics we have seen, not covered exactly, we have not covered them as such in details, but then yes, we have come to be acquainted with their names and briefly with their works. So अब तक के critics क्या कर रहे थे? अब तक के critics जो थे, the kind of literary criticism that was being practiced according to T.S. Eliot was mere opinion. कल हम लोग जब criticism की बात कर रहे थे, we were talking about how to distinguish between opinion and judgment. एक opinion बनाना बहुत आसान है. Everybody is entitled and feels entitled to have an opinion on everything in the world. हमको गाना आए ना आए, लेकिन हम opinion दे सकते हैं कि so and so कैसा गाता है या गाती है. So however, when we talk about criticism, when we talk about reviewing literature, we cannot go by mere opinion. There has to be a backdrop of expertise which will help us shape our opinion. So a shaped opinion is what we call a judgment, right? So what T.S. Eliot was trying to emphasize is that critics in his time were merely giving opinions. ये अच्छा है, ये बुरा है, ऐसा होना चाहिए, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. Now, there was no justification behind these opinions, and many of these opinions, went on to build or break writers. Because what happens is when a book is published and you have a good review of the book by some significant, intellectual, the book is a big hit. Even if the book is not good, a good review of the book can go a long way to ensure the book's success. Similarly, a bad review of the book will break the bones of a work without it's even appearing before the reading public. So nobody will bother to read it before writing it off and saying कि ये तो worthless है, फलाना ने कह दिया ये worthless है, so ये worthless है. So Eliot was merely trying to cure this prejudice that had come in the English letters at that point of time. And he was trying to say, what should criticism do? And he says that the work of the critic, is not to interpret a literary work. Critic का काम interpretation नहीं है. What is interpretation? Drawing meaning. And how does one draw meaning? Of course, according to one's own subjectivity, अपने हिसाब से. मुझे लगता है ये मीन करता है, किसी और को लगेगा कि वो कुछ और मीन करता है, किसी और को फिर वो कुछ और मीन करेगा. So there can be multiplicity of opinions. However, are there really multiplicity of meanings? This is a question which T.S. Eliot has not completely answered. He does not say whether there are multiplicity of meanings within a text. But yes, what T.S. Eliot does say is that critic का काम meaning making नहीं है, critic का काम interpretation नहीं है. क्रिटिक का काम सिर्फ एक वर्क से रिलेटेड इंफॉर्मेशन को सप्लाई करना है टू रीडर्स so that the reader can familiarize himself or herself, in a better way with the work. So according to T.S. Eliot, in his Function of Criticism, he says that the job of the critic is not to, interpret a piece of work. The job of the critic is only to supply information which will assist the reader in interpreting the work. Right. So T.S. Eliot kind of attempts to correct the prejudice that had appeared in the English letters of the time by trying to set criticism on a proper footing. वो criticism को एक sound unprejudiced base देना चाहते थे. वो अपने ऐसे में कहते हैं कि अगर हम आज का critical scenario देखें, it is almost like a Sunday park where you find that people of all sorts of temperaments have come together and everyone is shouting and screaming for attention. मुझे देखो मैं ये कह रहा हूँ, मुझे देखो मेरी बात सुनो मैं ये कह रहा हूँ. However, you find that in this chaos, in this chaos of criticism, literature is getting neglected because nobody is actually talking about literature. People are talking about their opinions of literature, what they feel about a particular work, and this T.S. Eliot felt was kind of not helping to build up anything. Because criticism का काम destroy करना नहीं है, criticism का काम build करना है, criticism का काम evaluate करना है, judge करना है, ताकि जो बेहतरीन चीजें हैं वो आगे बढ़ती रहें. They are retained by our culture, our civilization. They are retained for posterity, for the coming generations. So criticism cannot be destructive in nature. It cannot begin with the aim of destruction. It has to begin with the aim of creation, with the aim of selection, and with the aim of retention of whatever is good in our culture. So T.S. Eliot does a lot to define criticism. He says कि criticism क्या है, and वो कहते हैं कि criticism is the building of taste. Very simply, according to T.S. Eliot, criticism is the building of taste, is the building of a literary taste in the common man. तो criticism सिखाता है लोगों को कि क्या पसंद करना चाहिए, क्या नहीं पसंद करना चाहिए. So you realize, to explain it to you very simply, you realize there was a time when family dramas, the Ekta Kapoor serials were very popular. And then बहुत popular थे, बहुत viewership उनको मिलती थी. And then came a trend when people began to question कि क्या ये सही में हमारी कहानी प्रोजेक्ट करते हैं, हमारी कहानी स्क्रीन पर दिखाते हैं. Because these serials claimed to be talking about the middle class. And of course जो इनकी viewership होती थी वो भी predominantly middle class होती थी. लेकिन क्या ये सच में मिडिल क्लासेस की बात करते थे? एंड देन होल लॉट ऑफ क्रिटिकल आइडियाज केम अप कि भाई इसकी हीरोइंस तो जो है सुबह से शाम तक वैसी ही रहती है, दे आर डूइंग सच अ लॉट ऑफ हाउस वर्क बट उनका मेकअप जरा भी खराब नहीं होता है, दे सीम टू गो टू स्लीप विद फुल मेकअप एंड ऑल काइंड्स ऑफ आइडियाज, फनी भी, क्वेश्चनिंग भी, सीरियस भी, दे बिगैन टू क्रॉप अप. So the point is, the idea of criticism, the idea of critical dialogue is to build up a taste, in the reading public. The reading public should know कि क्या अच्छा है, क्या बुरा है, क्या पढ़ना चाहिए, क्या नहीं पढ़ना चाहिए. Criticism is not, according to Eliot, the interpretation of works of art. It is merely the supplying of opinion which will help the reader to know and, to acquaint and familiarize himself or herself with the work better. And it is also to build taste. You should know what to like. You should know what is preferable over others. So ये काम है critic का, and T.S. Eliot has, as I said, done a lot at the beginning of the 20th century to kind of re-establish the basics of literary criticism. हम T.S. Eliot से अगर आगे बढ़ते हैं तो you have two important critics also in this period, F.R. Lewis, I.A. Richards, who are in their own ways trying to redefine criticism. I.A. Richards, for example, is most well known for his practice of what he preaches to be practical criticism. I.A. Richards ने एक नया concept develop किया और वो concept था practical criticism का. तो ये concept अगर देखो तो पहले की कुछ concept से थोड़ा अलग था, because इसके पहले जो idea बहुत popular था was the idea of what you call the historical criticism or what you call the biographical criticism. पहले क्या होता था, I'm sure all of you when you were in your school also, and जाहिर है हर स्कूल में literature पढ़ाया जाता है, and you of course have a paper on English literature where you are sometimes supposed to be talking about poems, critical appreciation poetry का देना पड़ता है. So you realize that what did your teachers ask you to do, what did you do in these papers? You, in order to understand a piece of poem or a piece of, say, short story or even an essay, you were supposed to understand the writer first. तो पहले ये होता था कि टीचर अभी भी to a large extent, that is how literature is being taught in classrooms across the world, कि before familiarizing a person or a student with a text, what we do is to familiarize them with the writers of these texts. So before I begin Charles Dickens's Hard Times, शायद हमको एक lecture हम plan करते हैं जो Dickens पर होगा. I will be talking about Dickens, and then I will come to Hard Times. तो ये एक trend बना है and बना था academia में, जिसमें कि हम लोग प्रेफर करते थे कि एक वर्क के राइटर के बारे में जाना जाए एंड देन उस राइटर की बायोग्राफी से हम उस वर्क को रिलेट करें. सो फॉर एग्जांपल से द राइटर वाज for example, Sylvia Plath. And when you read Sylvia Plath, you realize that much of the criticism of Sylvia Plath's poems is mediated by the fact that she suffered from Electra complex. So ये एक biographical fact है about Sylvia Plath, which has kind of flooded Sylvia Plath's interpretation, and people are not willing to see Plath from any other angle except for the fact that she had Electra complex and she was very confessional in her poetry, and she had a very conflicted relationship with her father. And every poem, ठीक है, Daddy is a specific poem which talks about all these things. But you will see that most times, almost every poem of Plath is read along these lines. So the point I'm trying to make is that it was a very, very popular method in literary criticism to read a particular work by placing it in the context of the writer's life. सो राइटर फॉर एग्जाम्पल शेक्सपियर, तो हम लोग देखते हैं कि एक बहुत नॉर्मल ट्रेंड है शेक्सपियरियन क्रिटिसिज्म में कि ये जो 4 मेजर ट्रेजेडीज जब शेक्सपियर ने लिखी, एंड दिस ट्रेंड बिगिंस फ्रॉम AC ब्रैडले के टाइम से ये ट्रेंड चला आ रहा है कि शेक्सपियर was going through a very difficult time in his life, and so and so and so and so had happened to him, and it is at that point of time that which is known as the darkest period in his life, and that is the point that he wrote these 4 major tragedies. ठीक है, तो this is a way of, this was a way of teaching, and as I say, it still remains a way of teaching in many parts of the world, that we read a text intimately by placing it in the context of the writer's life. इसको हम लोग कहते हैं the biographical method of literary criticism. तो हम देखेंगे कि ये राइटर, सबसे पहले हम देखेंगे कि ये मेल था या फीमेल था. So that gives you an approach कि अच्छा, okay, so if you are reading, say for example, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, your reading of Elizabeth Barrett Browning's poems will be very different from Robert Browning's poems, because she's a woman and he's a man. You keep into mind the fact that in poems का जो speaker है वो एक मेल है या वो एक फीमेल है, या for why only poetry, even for novels for example. तो जब तक ये माना जा रहा था कि जॉर्ज इलियट कौन है नहीं पता था, जॉर्ज इलियट वाज अ स्यूडोनिम, सो जब तक नहीं पता था कि जॉर्ज इलियट कौन है, तब तक उसकी नॉवेल्स को बड़ा अप्रिसिएशन मिलता था, बिकॉज शी वाज टॉकिंग ऑफ इश्यूज व्हिच वर सपोज्ड टू बी स्पोकन ऑफ बाय मेल राइटर्स. शी वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट हिस्ट्री, शी वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट पॉलिटिक्स, शी वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट इकोनॉमी. तो ऐसे इश्यूज थे जो जाहिर है सिर्फ मेल राइटर ही बोल सकता है इन इश्यूज के बारे में. सो जॉर्ज इलियट मस्ट बी अ मेल. सो एज लॉन्ग एज दिस आइडिया प्रिवेल्ड कि जॉर्ज इलियट एक मेल था, तो वो वर्क्स वर वेरी पॉपुलर. बट द मोमेंट पीपल केम टू नो कि जॉर्ज इलियट इज एक्चुअली अ वुमन, शी इज मेरी एनी वैंस, तो उसकी क्रिटिकल रिसेप्शन में फर्क पड़ गया. बिकॉज एक वुमन इन सारी चीज़ों के बारे में कन्विंसिंगली कैसे बात करेगी? शी इज नॉट equipped, शी इज नॉट एंटाइटल्ड टू टॉक अबाउट दीज थीम्स. उसको आता ही नहीं है, दिमाग ही नहीं है, वो कैसे बात कर लेगी? So that affected the critical reception of George Eliot's works, at that point of time. What I want to tell you, what I want to emphasize here through all this is that biographical criticism में हम कुछ चीज़ों को taken for granted लेते हैं. हम पहले ये देखते हैं कि उस writer का gender क्या है, फिर हम देखते हैं कि वो राइटर जो है कौन से सोशियो कल्चरल बैकग्राउंड से आता है. सो वो अपर क्लास से आता है, वो मिडिल क्लास से आता है, वर्किंग क्लास से आ रहा है. एंड देन अगेन हम उसकी नेशनैलिटी, कल्चर देखते हैं, वो कौन से कल्चर से बिलोंग कर रहा है. उसके एजुकेशन देखते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल शेक्सपियर तो अनलेटर्ड था, बिल्कुल पढ़ा लिखा नहीं था. सो देयर इज अ डिफरेंट अप्रोच टू शेक्सपियर्स वर्क्स. बेन जॉनसन बहुत लिटरेट था, यूनिवर्सिटी गया था. देयर इज अ डिफरेंट अप्रोच टू बेन जॉनसन्स वर्क्स. सो द पॉइंट इज दैट all this information that we have about a writer's life can affect our understanding, and does affect our understanding of a particular work of art. इस मेथड को तोड़ा, इस मेथड को ब्रेक किया, इसमें एक एक रप्चर क्रिएट किया, करने की कोशिश की at least a man named I.A. Richards when he introduced the idea of practical criticism. So he said that practical criticism क्या होगा? वो एक वर्क को practically criticize करना होगा. So practical criticism, what Richards tried to do was he handed out texts to his reading public, to his students. He began in the classroom. He was a professor and he began in the classroom. वो अपनी classroom practice में उसने ये शुरू किया कि वो अपने students को short texts देता था, poems, stories. And these texts would be, unnamed, untitled. So the title of the poem would not be there. The poet would not be mentioned. And then, this text would be distributed among the students. And the students would be expected to write response essays to this text, which was given to them. तो ये जो text उनको मिलता था, जो कि untitled था, anonymous था, writer mention नहीं था, इन texts को जो है, उसके स्टूडेंट्स इवैल्यूएट करते थे. एंड देन Richards would study all these sheets which would come back to him. He would study in order to find out कि what difference do such interpretations make from an interpretation which is well informed about the background of the text. And अक्सर ही बहुत variation आता था. For example, if you read a poem like The Solitary Reaper, you already know that Solitary Reaper is written by William Wordsworth, and you already know that William Wordsworth was a romantic poet. You already know about romanticism. Whatever forms the core of Wordsworth's philosophy. This will obviously affect your reading and interpretation of a poem like The Solitary Reaper. However, अगर हम सॉलिटरी रीपर आपको प्रेजेंट करें फॉर एग्जांपल वर्ड्सवर्थ की कोई दूसरी पोएम आपको प्रेजेंट करें विदाउट टेलिंग यू दैट इट इज रिटन बाय वर्ड्सवर्थ, तो फिर आप कहाँ से सोचना शुरू कीजिएगा? बिकॉज बायोग्राफिकल क्रिटिसिज्म में तो हम लोग राइटर से सोचना शुरू करते हैं कि अच्छा ये वर्ड्सवर्थ की टेक्स्ट है तो ठीक है, आई बिगिन विद रोमांटिसिज्म एंड द रोमांटिक एज एंड दिस एंड दैट एंड नेचर एंड ऑल. But when we are not at all informed about the origins of a text, how do we begin to evaluate it? How do we begin to criticize it? ये आइडिया जो आई रिचर्ड्स ने डेवलप किया या डेवलप करने की कोशिश की, this goes a long way to shape the new critical theories which will be formed after them. तो इसके बाद हम देखते हैं एक न्यू क्रिटिसिज्म का स्कूल आता है, a school of criticism which calls itself new criticism. और ये न्यू क्रिटिसिज्म खुद को न्यू क्यों समझता है? क्योंकि ये रिचर्ड्स के फॉर्मूला पर ये पुराने मेथड्स से हटकर कोई नया मेथड डेवलप करने की कोशिश कर रहा है. They are talking about close reading of texts. The new school of literary criticism tries to talk about the close reading of texts. Brooks और उसके जो साथी थे, इन लोगों ने जो ये फॉर्मेट डेवलप किया, उसमें उन लोगों ने कोशिश की इस बात को पुट फॉरवर्ड करने की दैट मीनिंग जो है वो राइटर नहीं बनाता है, मीनिंग जो है वो पोएट नहीं बनाता है, मीनिंग जो है वो ड्रामेटिस्ट नहीं बनाता है, मीनिंग जो है वो वर्ड्स बनाते हैं, शब्द बनाते हैं. It is the words in a text which go on to create meaning. And in order to understand the meaning of a text, शायद हम लोगों को राइटर की लाइफ जानने की जरूरत नहीं है, उसकी लाइफ की क्या क्राइसिस हुई, वो कहाँ एजुकेटेड हुआ, उसके फैमिली में कितने भाई बहन थे. These are immaterial facts for us. ये जो उसकी biographical factors हैं, they have absolutely no bearing on the meaning of a particular text that we are handling. Text में what is important is words, the arrangement of words, how are words arranged, and in this particular arrangement, what do these words mean? So the school of new criticism talked about this close reading of texts. वो हर शब्द पर attention देने की बात करते हैं ये critics कि हर word equally important है, अगर वो text में है तो वो important है, and there is no word which is superfluous in a text. कोई भी वर्ड एक्स्ट्रा नहीं है, हर वर्ड इंपॉर्टेंट है. वर्ड्स की इतनी क्लोज रीडिंग होनी चाहिए दैट दे यील्ड देयर मीनिंग टू द रीडर. इतने ध्यान से पढ़ो कि उससे कुछ मीनिंग निकालो. You do not need to know about the external circumstances which affected the text. So for example, if you read a poem like Keats's Ode to a Nightingale, तो Ode to a Nightingale के बारे में जैसे बहुत सारे schools में Ode to a Nightingale पढ़ाया जाता है, बहुत हम लोगों को बचपन में पढ़ाया गया है. And what are the things that we are told about the text? That Ode to a Nightingale was composed at a time when Keats was very sad. His younger brother Tom had recently died. And he's at his friend's house, he's sitting in his friend's garden and he sees a real nightingale, और वो nightingale के influence में खो जाता है. And then and finally all of a sudden you see that the poem ends very abruptly. The poem ends very abruptly with adieu, so adieu. Suddenly the nightingale goes away, and then a biographical method of literary criticism tells us that this was an actual nightingale, and suddenly the nightingale flew away, and therefore Keats's poem also comes to an end because the actual nightingale has flown away. However, suppose we did not know the facts about this work. Suppose we did not know that it was composed by a very, very young poet who died at a very tender age. Now, if we do not know such facts about a work, how does the meaning making shape within our minds? How do we make meaning out of a poem? Would Keats's poems be considered as great, without the knowledge that he died at a very younger age? These are questions which are very difficult, to understand. Now, see, Deepika, please go slow. I'm trying to go as slow as I can, bacha. Hmm. You have to, thoda sa you have to, catch up, because information wise, we have not as yet, discussed a lot. So I am going slow, kind of. Let's see how we can manage. Okay. So, what we are trying to here, what we are trying to focus on is that would we derive the same meaning from a literary text if the facts of its making were not known to us. अगर एक लिटरेचर एक लिटरेरी वर्क के फैक्ट्स हमको ना पता हो, द सर्कमस्टेंसेस ऑफ इट्स क्रिएशन अगर हमको ना पता हो. Harvinder says that I'm not audible. Am I audible, kids? Am I audible? Is there a problem with regards to audibility?
No, ma'am, no problem. We can
Yes,
hear
actually,
you.
yes, good. Thank you so much. See, as far as audibility, visibility, all of this is concerned, some network issues हैं, and the network issue has to be at your end. मतलब अगर मेरी तरफ network issue होगा, तो हम नहीं connect कर पाएंगे, हम तुम्हारी बात नहीं सुन पाएंगे. Similarly, if you have a low bandwidth at your end, you may not be able to hear me properly. But as there are many students who can hear me, which shows that there has to be a personal specific problem at your end. Okay, better bandwidth के लिए keep your videos and audios muted. जब आप अपनी वीडियो और ऑडियो बिल्कुल म्यूटेड रखते हैं तो आपका बैंडविड्थ सही रहता है. You can just plug your earphones and listen to what I have to say. And of course, this entire thing is being recorded. It will be available to you also, probably. So, okay. And I'm also not running away. So I'm very much here. And you can contact me and we can be in touch. So don't worry. Right. So, हम लोग ये जानने की कोशिश कर रहे थे कि अगर एक लिटरेरी वर्क के क्रिएशन के पीछे जो सर्कमस्टेंसेस इन्वॉल्व होती हैं, अगर हमको वो नहीं पता हो, तो क्या वो हमारे मीनिंग मेकिंग को इफेक्ट करेगा? So, for example, if you did not know that Ode to a Nightingale is written by a 24-year-old poet, and who was very grieved at the time, who actually saw a real nightingale, ये सब facts अगर ना पता हो, तो फिर हम लोग उस poem को कैसे judge करेंगे? Of course, as the new critics say, that there is no other way to understand a piece of literature but to read it closely, to read it intimately, to develop a kind of intimacy with the words, with the lines in proper order, in proper context. So, जो न्यू क्रिटिक्स थे उनके लिए द अरेंजमेंट ऑफ वर्ड्स बहुत मैटर करता था. वो कहते थे कि अगर वर्ड्स इस ऑर्डर में अरेंज्ड हैं, जबकि देयर आर ऑफ कोर्स वी नो दैट देयर आर एन वेज ऑफ अरेंजिंग वर्ड्स, देयर आर एन वेज ऑफ राइटिंग वन लाइन. एक लाइन जिसका एक मीनिंग है, उसको हम सेम मीनिंग को रिटेन करते हुए कम से कम 10-12 तरीकों से और लिख सकते हैं, है ना. दैट इज समथिंग व्हिच वी नो अबाउट लैंग्वेज, दैट लैंग्वेज इज इमेंसली फर्टाइल, लैंग्वेज इज इमेंसली क्रिएटिव. सो keeping the meaning intact, we can write a line in several different ways. But of all the possible ways in which a particular line can be written, अगर एक writer ने choose किया है to code his or her works in a particular order, एक line को ऐसे arrange करना है, अगर उसने decide किया है, अगर उसने ऐसा किया है, there must be something in that arrangement of words. कुछ तो होगा कि ये सेंटिमेंट प्राइमरी है, ये सेकेंडरी है, क्या है. सो द न्यू क्रिटिक्स वर फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम दे ड्रू द अटेंशन ऑफ रीडर्स टू वर्ड्स ऑन द पेज. दे सेड कि मीनिंग समझने के लिए कहीं बाहर जाने की जरूरत नहीं है, ये जानने की जरूरत नहीं है कि ये किसने लिखा, ये जानने की जरूरत नहीं है कि उसकी एज क्या थी, उसका जेंडर क्या था, वो दुखी था या खुश था, क्यों लिखा, उसके दिमाग में क्या चल रहा था जब उसने लिखा. These are facts which are not pertinent to making meaning, making sense out of a work of art. Important ये है कि वो कह क्या रहा है, important ये है कि उसने words को किस तरह से arrange किया है, and what do these words have to tell us, right? So new criticism was about close reading of texts. ध्यान से पढ़ें. No, it's not about taking summaries at second hand. किसी ने पढ़ा, उसका समरी बना दिया, हमने वो पढ़ लिया, तो वो क्लोज रीडिंग नहीं हुआ. क्लोज रीडिंग एक्चुअल टेक्स्ट का होता है, एक्चुअल वर्क का होता है, जिसमें कि हम समझने की कोशिश करते हैं कि वर्ड्स अगर इस ऑर्डर में अरेंज्ड हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, समथिंग विच हैज बीन रिटन एज एन एलिजी, could it have been written as a sonnet, could it have been written as say a lyric, as an ode, है ना. Something which has been written as a poetic play, a poetic drama, could it have been written as a prose work. मतलब form important है. अगर किसी ने जो है, if T.S. Eliot has written Murder in the Cathedral as a poetic drama, तो जाहिर है he felt that the form of the poetic drama would be more capable of conveying his ideas than any other, dramatic form. तो form पर ध्यान देना है, हमें language पर ध्यान देना है, हमें language के अंदर जो है, for example figures of speech, metaphors, similes, personifications, इन चीज़ों पर ध्यान देना है, हमें meanings पर ध्यान देना है, possible meanings. One word can have multiple meanings, है ना? So there are many homophonic words, words which sound the same. There are words which mean the same. तो इतने सारे जो रेंज हैं हमारे सिनोनिम्स के, एंटोनिम्स के, इन सब में से अगर कोई पर्टिकुलर वर्ड चूज किया गया है तो क्यों चूज किया गया है, इस तरह की चीजों पर न्यू क्रिटिक्स फोकस करते थे. सो एज आई सेड दैट द स्कूल ऑफ न्यू क्रिटिसिज्म advocated strongly what we call the close reading of a literary text. Okay. From new criticism, we realized that at the time that the new critics were flourishing, एक parallel school of criticism चल रहा है, जिसको हम लोग जो कि जिसका की बेसिस जो था, जिसका सेंटर जो था वो रशिया में था, मॉस्को लिटरेरी सर्कल था, जहाँ पर ये कुछ स्टडीज चल रहे थे लिंग्विस्टिक्स में at that point of time. And these people, they, through their linguistic studies, they had arrived at a school or at a principle of criticism, which they called formalism. So Russian formalists, there were a few formalists, जिसमें से Raymond Jacobson का नाम बहुत famous है, you will come across it when you read it. तो एक school था which called itself, the formalist school of literary criticism. This school had its center in Russia. एंड ये जो थे, ये अपने आप को फॉर्मलिस्ट इसलिए कहते थे क्योंकि ये एक लिटरेरी वर्क के फॉर्म के साथ बहुत कंसर्न थे. इनको लगता था कि देयर इज अ स्ट्रॉन्ग इंटरैक्शन बिटवीन फॉर्म एंड मीनिंग. सो दे वर कंसर्न्ड विथ लिटरेरी फॉर्म्स कि क्या जॉनर है, लिरिक है, ओड है, एपिक है, क्या जॉनर है इसका, फॉर्म क्या है इसका. They were also concerned with, formalism as far as language is concerned. कि language में structures क्या है, grammatical structure, किस तरह की grammatical structures use करते हैं ये particular writer. Language किस तरह से उसका interact करता है, rules of grammar follow होता है या challenge होता है, liberty लेते हैं नहीं लेते हैं. So the formalist school, was a thoroughly linguistic school which traced meaning directly to language. और ये जो शिफ्ट कर रहा है, दिस शिफ्ट इज टेकिंग प्लेस इन दी, हम इसको लोकेट कर सकते हैं हिस्टोरिकली इन द बैकड्रॉप ऑफ द सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर. ये सब पोस्ट सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर डेवलपमेंट्स हैं, जब लैंग्वेज एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट डोमेन बन जाता है फॉर ऑल क्रिटिकल थॉट, कि अब लोगों को ये समझ में आने लगता है दैट लिटरेचर का जो लिटरेचर का जो मीडियम है वो है लैंग्वेज. एंड लैंग्वेज जो है वो बिल्कुल उतना ट्रांसपेरेंट नहीं है जितना कि हम लोगों को नजर आता है. Now already before this, in the latter part, in the earlier part of the 20th century, we had come across a very, very important linguist by the name of Ferdinand Saussure. Ferdinand de Saussure was a Swiss linguist, जिनका की बहुत कंट्रीब्यूशन है लिंग्विस्टिक्स में भी एंड कल्चरल एंड लिटरेरी स्टडीज में भी, क्योंकि Saussure ने जो फंडामेंटली हमारे सामने रखा was the idea, he changed the idea of language. जो Saussure का सबसे बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन था हमारे लिए was that he changed our perception towards language. तो Ferdinand de Saussure ने कुछ बहुत छोटी छोटी बातें हम लोगों से कही which had an important bearing on the direction that literary studies would be taking in the 20th century. तो जो जितने सारे हम डेवलपमेंट्स देख रहे हैं, न्यू क्रिटिसिज्म से फॉर्मलिज्म, एंड फॉर्मलिज्म से हम देखेंगे देयर बी अ मूव टुवर्ड्स व्हाट वी कॉल स्ट्रक्चरलिज्म, पोस्ट स्ट्रक्चरलिज्म, डीकंस्ट्रक्शन, एंड देन आपका जितने सारे और बाकी इजम्स हैं, मार्क्सिज्म एंड फेमिनिज्म एंड क्वेयर थियरी, और इतने सारे ये सारे जो इजम्स हैं ये आपके बेसिकली आते हैं फॉलोइंग इन द वेक ऑफ पोस्ट मॉडर्निज्म. सो पोस्ट मॉडर्निज्म की जो आइडियाज हैं ये कहीं ना कहीं वी फाइंड दैट दे ओ देयर ओरिजिन टू Saussure's ideas about language. So what did Saussure tell us? So of course before Saussure it was understood that language is something very transparent. right? Language is something very transparent. It's a medium. It's a medium. So for example, I give you a glass of water, है ना? मैंने एक ग्लास में मैंने पानी लिया और वो मैंने आपको दिया. तो ग्लास क्या काम करता है? ग्लास का काम क्या है? ग्लास का काम ये है कि वो आप तक पानी पहुंचा रहा है. The glass is merely a medium. It is a vessel in which water is being given to you. And हम यही assume करते हैं कि जो पानी हमने आपको दिया है आपको वही पानी मिल रहा है. ग्लास ने उसके बीच में कोई इंटरवेंशन नहीं क्रिएट किया है. ग्लास ने उसमें कुछ ऐड नहीं किया है, उससे कुछ निकाला नहीं है. एंड एज इट इज the water that I have given you is as it is received by you in this glass that I have handed over to you, right? तो कहने का मतलब ये है कि मीडियम जो है यहाँ पर वो बिल्कुल न्यूट्रल है, right? It is an impartial medium. It is a neutral medium. It does not tamper with the contents of with its contents. जो हमने डाला है उसमें, अगर पानी डाला है तो आपको पानी ही मिलेगा, जूस डाला है जूस ही मिलेगा, चाय डाली है चाय ही मिलेगी, right? So the glass here is an impartial, is a neutral medium via which whatever I wanted to send you, whatever I wanted to give you, whatever I wanted to hand over to you has been given to you, right? ठीक. लैंग्वेज को हम लोग कुछ ऐसा ही समझते थे. हम लोग ये मानकर चलते थे कि लैंग्वेज इज अ न्यूट्रल मीडियम एंड हम उस लैंग्वेज में जो भी डालेंगे, जो भी मीनिंग डालकर हम आप तक पहुंचाएंगे, आप वो मीनिंग एज इट इज रिसीव करेंगे. शायद होना भी यही चाहिए था, राइट? However, you realize that this is sadly not the case, because misunderstandings are a very, very common feature and a very, very common phenomenon of our everyday lives. हम कहते कुछ है, लोग समझते कुछ है. हम बताना कुछ चाहते हैं, लोगों को समझ में कुछ आता है. We want to express something, we end up expressing something else without having intended to do it. हम चाहते नहीं थे ऐसा हो, बट हो जाता है. How does it happen? Despite your intentions, miscommunication happens. Despite your intentions, best intentions, slippages in meaning happen. And why does it happen? It happens simply because language is not the transparent medium that we believe it to be. हम लोगों को लगता है कि ये बहुत ट्रांसपेरेंट है, हम लोगों को लगता है ये बहुत न्यूट्रल है, बहुत इम्पार्शियल है. ऐसा नहीं है. And Saussure tried to draw our attention to this particular fact. So Saussure said that first of all, to begin with, he said that language जो है वो एक system है. It's a system of communication. It's a sign system. Language is a sign system. So he placed language in the domain of sign studies. Sign studies को हम semiotics कहते हैं. Semiotics. Semiotic is sign system. So Saussure placed language in the domain of semiosis. He said that language जो है वो कुछ नहीं है, एक sign system है जिसमें की meanings coded रहती है. So for example, you have the traffic lights. Traffic lights की meanings coded हैं. Everybody understands. कि traffic lights क्या कहना चाहती हैं. So you have the red light which is asking you to stop. You have the orange light which is asking you to get ready to go. And you have, of course, the green light which tells you to go, right? तो इन लाइट्स को समझने में, इन ट्रैफिक सिग्नल्स को समझने में हमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं होती है. अब ये बताओ कि रेड, ऑरेंज एंड ग्रीन ही क्यों? व्हाई? देयर इज नो रीजन व्हाई. कभी किसी जमाने में जिसने ये बनाया होगा उसने रेड, ऑरेंज और ग्रीन को ले लिया होगा. बट ये रेड, ऑरेंज और ग्रीन नहीं होके कोई और कलर भी हो सकती थी. इट कुड हैव बीन पिंक, पर्पल एंड से इंडिगो. हो सकती थी. वेरी वेल पॉसिबल. रेड के बजाय हम से ऑरेंज लाइट पर स्टॉप कर जाते, ऑरेंज लाइट पर रेडी होने के बजाय हम से पिंक लाइट पर रेडी हो जाते, ग्रीन लाइट पर जाने के बजाय हम से पर्पल लाइट पर चले जाते. हो सकता था, बिल्कुल हो सकता था. नाउ द पॉइंट इज, at some point of time, somebody decided that this will be this. The red will mean stop, and the orange will mean get ready to go, and the green will mean go. ऐसा किसी ने decide किया था, and उस बात को जो है वो बात रह गई. So it was arbitrarily decided. The decision to encode particular meaning via particular colors, this was an arbitrary decision. Arbitrary, random, कोई भी color लिया जा सकता था. But this decision became later on, it became established as a convention. The decision to begin with was arbitrary, random. Lekin once it has been decided, it is maintained as a convention. कन्वेंशन मतलब जो होता रहता है. तो अगर आप किसी और कंट्री में भी जाएंगे तो वहां भी ट्रैफिक लाइट्स का सेम ही मीनिंग होगा. इंडिया के हर शहर में सेम ही मीनिंग है, दूसरे देशों में भी सेम ही मीनिंग है. एंड आने वाले भी जनरेशंस में भी बिलीव दैट इसकी मीनिंग चेंज होने वाली नहीं है. सो इट इज बीइंग मेंटेन्ड एंड रीटेन्ड थ्रू कन्वेंशन. So this is what Saussure also tells us about language. Saussure says that language is arbitrary, and later on the associations between words and things are established through convention. So for example, I am Vashudhara. My parents could very well have chosen to call me something else. हमको कतरीना कैफ बुला लेते, हमको अरुंधति रॉय बुला लेते, कुछ भी बुला सकते थे. उस वक्त उनके हाथ में थी. It was an arbitrary decision that they made when they decided to call me whatever, when they decided to call me Vashudhara. This was the name that they gave me arbitrarily. But once the name was given, then at school and in the playground and in the park and at all social functions, I was called by this name. And ये नाम मेरे साथ जुड़ गया through convention, right? Saussure says that this is what holds true for language also. कि हमने किसी ने at some point of time decided to call so and so object by so and so name, and once वो decide हो गया फिर वो रह गया. कल को tomorrow if somebody wants to, and that is how language changes also. हम देखते हैं कि अगर हम चौसर की Canterbury Tales को पढ़ें ओरिजिनल में तो we find it difficult to understand Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Why? You had it in your IGNOU syllabus also. You have Canterbury Tales, and you realize that you need the modern transcription of the text in order to follow it. Why? Because इतने सालों में language has changed. इतने सालों में there has been a change in language. Old words have fallen into disuse. New words have replaced them. So ऐसा होता है. So Saussure says that at some point of time, some particular word was, associated with, some object, and that association has been maintained through convention. But कल अगर people decide कि नहीं, इसको ये नहीं बुलाएंगे, ये वाली चीज को आज से हम लोग ये बुलाएंगे. For example, you see that पहले हम लोगों के टाइम में we used to call copy. कॉपी बुलाते थे. बुक्स होती थी एंड कॉपीज होती थी. अभी कॉपी नहीं होती, अभी नोटबुक होती है. सो माय सन्स यूज नोटबुक्स, राइट? सो कॉपी नहीं होती है, नोटबुक्स होती है. अगेन पहले हम लोग रबर बुलाते थे, इरेजर को वी यूज्ड टू कॉल रबर. तो रबर खो गया, रबर कहाँ है? That is how we refer to the object. Abhi, my children don't do it that way. They call it eraser properly. So the point is that the association between words and things is an arbitrary association. It is carried on by convention. At any point of time, people decide कि इसको change करना है, तो वो change भी हो जाता है फिर. So जैसे rubber eraser बन गया, and जैसे copy notebook बन गया, वैसे linguistic conventions keep on changing. पुराने words जाते हैं, नए words आते हैं, पुराने words को नया meaning मिलता है. So Saussure कि ये सब कहने के पीछे मकसद ये था कि वो हमको बताना चाहते थे that language is not fixed. हम जो ये मानकर चलते हैं कि ये ग्लास है और इस ग्लास में हमने पानी डाल दिया तो ये पानी तुम तक हूबहू ऐसा पहुंच जाएगा, तो ग्लास के लिए तो ये पॉसिबल है because glass cannot change. But language is a shifting medium. Language से हम वो fixity ना expect करें तभी बेहतर है. The language which I have grown up with and the meanings that words have to me, the same meanings will not be shared by you perhaps. So Saussure was trying to tell us that we have to do away with the idea that language is a stable medium. It is a fixed medium. No, language is not a fixed medium. It is not a stable medium. Rather, what is language? So language is merely a structure. Language is a structure in a range of structures. तो Saussure जो है दो तरह के structural relationships की बात करते हैं. He talks about syntagmatic structures and he talks about paradigmatic structures. ठीक है, थोड़े difficult sounding है लेकिन ऐसा बहुत difficult नहीं है. So syntagmatic relationships, syntagmatic structures and paradigmatic structures. तो इसको हम लोग जो है काइंड ऑफ एक्स एक्सिस वाई एक्सिस के एनालॉजी से समझ सकते हैं. So you have, you know, syntagmatic relationships are relationships which are shared by the same class of objects. Okay, the same class of objects. For example, मान लो कि रोटी सब्जी, राइट? तो रोटी खाने के लिए सब्जी चाहिए. सब्जी में n variations हो सकते हैं. There can be an n variations in the sabzi. There can be an n variations in the roti also. रोटी की जगह पूरी बना लो, पराठा बना लो, नान बना लो, नहीं है तो ब्रेड भी यूज कर लो, right? So you have so many variations on this axis. You can use so many possibilities instead of a roti. And then again on the other axis, you know, sabzi ki jagah you can have any sabzi. So you can have a bhujia, you can have a gravy, you can have vegetarian, you can have non-vegetarian. So जो ये ऑब्जेक्ट्स आपस में जो रिलेशनशिप शेयर करेंगे, सो रोटी, the relationship that roti will share to puri and to paratha and to naan and to bread, this will be a syntagmatic relationship. Similarly, the relationship that all those sabzis share among each other, so say chicken and mutton and you know पनीर एंड व्हाटएवर, तो वो जो छोले, वो जो आपस में रिलेशनशिप शेयर करेंगे, दैट विल अगेन बी अ सिंटैग्मेटिक रिलेशनशिप. बट व्हेन यू कंबाइन अ रोटी, one from this place and one from the other place, when you combine them together, so say you take puri or chole, or you take naan and paneer, or you take say roti and mutton, तो जब इस तरह से आप combine करेंगे, that will be a paradigmatic relationship. So a relationship between different elements. So syntagmatic relationships are relationships among the same elements, and paradigmatic relationships are relationships which are shared, you know, crossly among different elements. तो सस्योर ने कहा कि पूरी लैंग्वेज जो है वो इस तरह के दो स्ट्रक्चर्स में बटी हुई है. You have syntagmatic structures, you have paradigmatic structures. So for example, all nouns, जितने सारे nouns हैं हमारे लैंग्वेज में, all nouns will share the same relationship with each other. तो syntagmatic relationship हो गया. Verbs will share, you know, a syntagmatic relationship with each other. लेकिन सेंटेंस में क्या होगा? सिर्फ नाउन से तो सेंटेंस बनना नहीं है, सिर्फ वर्ब से भी बनना नहीं है, सिर्फ एडजेक्टिव से भी बनना नहीं है. तो फिर व्हेन यू अरेंज वर्ड्स इन अ सेंटेंस, तो आपको हर एक से एक लेना पड़ेगा. यू विल हैव टू पिक अप एन आर्टिकल एंड देन यू विल हैव टू पिक अप अ नाउन एंड देन यू विल हैव टू पिक अप अ वर्ब, है ना? तो ऐसे करके जब आप सेंटेंस बनाते हैं तो आप एक पैराडिग्मेटिक रिलेशनशिप एस्टैब्लिश कर रहे हैं बिटवीन द डिफरेंट you know, units of a language. So Saussure said that language is nothing but a structure. Language को हम बिल्कुल किसी भी तरह से stable entity ना समझें. It is open, it is amenable, it is vulnerable to ruptures of all sorts. वो slide करता है हमेशा, वो कभी fixed नहीं रहता है, क्योंकि वो एक structure का हिस्सा है. जब structure change करेगा तो structure में हर एक word जो है वो अपना meaning change करेगा. And Saussure gives us an example of a train. He says कि local trains चलती हैं, 2 बजे की लोकल, 3 बजे की लोकल, 4 बजे की लोकल, है ना? तो he says that ये trains जो हैं वो एक structural order में चलती हैं. 2 बजे की लोकल will be any train that comes at 2 o'clock, है ना? हम ये नहीं देखेंगे कि ये physically वही train है जो कि हर रोज 2 बजे आती है, नहीं. It can be any train, but any train that comes at 2 o'clock for us will be the 2 o'clock local जो कि हमको पकड़ना है. So trains come 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. अब मान लो कि एक बीच में कोई ट्रेन नहीं आती है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल 2 बजे की ट्रेन आई एंड देन 3 बजे की ट्रेन जो है वो लेट होकर 4 बजे आई. 3 बजे की ट्रेन लेट करके 4 बजे आई. तो 4 बजे अब जो ट्रेन आ रही है हम उसको क्या बुलाएंगे? हम इसको 3 बजे की लोकल बुलाएंगे या 4 बजे की लोकल बुलाएंगे? ऑफ कोर्स हम इसको 3 बजे की ही लोकल बुलाएंगे, बिकॉज 3 बजे वाली ही है. यस, जो 3 बजे वाली है वो 4 बजे आ रही है. बट नाउ लुक एट इट, 4 बजे तो दूसरी को आना था, 4 बजे 3 बजे वाली लोकल आ रही है. सो देयर इज अ क्राइसिस फॉर अस इन नोमेनक्लेचर. हम इसको क्या नाम दें? हम इसको क्या कहेंगे? 3 बजे की लोकल कहेंगे कि 4 बजे की लोकल कहेंगे? नाउ हियर इटसेल्फ वी आर एनकाउंटरिंग अ स्लिपेज, जो हम मानकर चलते थे दैट 3 बजे लोकल इज अ ट्रेन व्हिच इज सपोज्ड टू कम एट 3 o'clock. अब वो नहीं हो रहा है. अब ये 3 बजे की लोकल 4 बजे आ रही है. एंड दैट इज हाउ, यू नो, a slippage has taken place. So Saussure was trying to emphasize that language is not a stable structure. Language is free, you know, to move. And this is the greatest liberty also, and this is also the greatest danger which is associated with language. हम मानकर चलते हैं कि हम ये मीन कर रहे हैं, but जरूरी नहीं है कि हम जो सोच रहे हैं हम मीन कर रहे हैं वो हम actually मीन कर रहे हैं. The meaning as it appears to different people can be different, and it can be very different from what I have planned or decided to speak, right? So Saussure ने और भी बहुत सारी बातें कही. We do not have I cannot use a chalk and blackboard for you, but then Saussure spoke about this जो हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं. So Saussure spoke about this unstable relationship between the signifier and the signified. तो सिग्निफायर क्या होता है और सिग्निफाइड क्या होता है? सिंपल, सिग्निफायर वो है जो सिग्निफाई करता है, एंड सिग्निफाइड वो है जो सिग्निफाई होता है. सो सिग्निफायर इज जो सिग्निफाई करता है, एंड क्या सिग्निफाई करता है? what is used as signifier? So of course language, what we are speaking, the word that we are pronouncing is the signifier. ये signify कर रहा है. So for example, I say tree. I say tree. Tree. So tree is a sound. It is a signifier. And what is it signifying? इसका signified क्या है? तो the moment I say tree, तो आपके दिमाग में एक tree का image आ जाता है. आप समझ जाते हैं कि हम क्या कह रहे हैं. Now of course this image will vary from person to person. किसी के दिमाग में शायद banyan tree का image आए, किसी के दिमाग में एक अशोक के पेड़ का इमेज आए, किसी के दिमाग में palm tree का इमेज आए, but all of you understand what is meant by the word tree, right? So the image that comes to your mind is the signified, जो signify हो रहा है, and the word, the word as I utter it, tree, is the signifier. तो signifier और signified इन दोनों का एक रिश्ता है जो कि बहुत अनस्टेबल है. As I said, बहुत yes, sound is the signifier. Yes, जो word है, बोलने में spoken word, लिखने में written word. So for example, if I write down tree, I type in your chat box tree. तो ये जो tree हमने यहाँ type किया है, this is the signifier. और ये क्या signify करता है? तो जो image आपके दिमाग में आती है, the moment you listen or the moment you absorb this word tree, जो इमेज आपके दिमाग में आती है वो है सिग्निफाइड. ये सिग्निफाइड क्या है? ये इमेज है. ये इमेज है जो आपके दिमाग में आ रही है. तो ये इमेज जो है ये वेरी कर रही है, एज आई सेड, फ्रॉम पर्सन टू पर्सन. किसी के दिमाग में एक बैनियन ट्री आ रहा है, किसी के दिमाग में पाम ट्री आ रहा है, किसी के दिमाग में कोई में भी छोटा सा कोई लोकल ट्री आ रहा है जिसके बारे में शायद किसी और को बहुत ना पता हो. बट ट्री क्या है ये हम सारे लोग बाय कॉन्सेंसस समझ सकते हैं. वी हैव अंडरस्टूड दैट ट्री मीन्स समथिंग विच विल हैव अ ट्रंक एंड विच विल हैव foliage ओवर इट. लीव्स रहेंगे, थोड़ा डेंस रहेगा, एंड अ ट्री देयरफॉर वुड बी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम अ bush, would be different from a shrub, would be different from any other vegetation. तो tree क्या है हम समझते हैं, but then exact image जो आपके दिमाग में आता है वो सिर्फ आप ही समझ सकते हैं वो क्या है. So Saussure says that the signifier and the signified are in a relationship with each other, but the relationship between them is not fixed. And this is an idea which will later on be used by the philosopher Derrida to develop his philosophy of deconstruction. Derrida जब deconstruction की बात करते हैं वो Saussure के इसी signifier और signified को लेकर break कर देते हैं. Saussure अभी कह रहे हैं कि signifier और signified एक दूसरे से जुड़ा हुआ है. कैसे जुड़ा हुआ है? He said कि arbitrary होता है. पहले तो किसी जमाने में किसी ने सोचा होगा कि इस ऑब्जेक्ट को ट्री बुलाएंगे तो ये आर्बिट्ररी है. Later on the meaning gets established by convention and the signifier and the signified get linked to one another, like maybe the two sides of a coin or the two sides of a page, है ना, दोनों एक दूसरे से culturally जुड़ जाते हैं तो इसी को ट्री कहा जाता है. ये रिलेशनशिप दरीदा बिल्कुल तोड़ देने वाले हैं आगे चल के. दरीदा is going to break this relationship between the signifier and the signified by saying कि ऐसा कोई रिलेशनशिप हो नहीं सकता है फिक्स्ड. It will keep on changing and it will keep on changing from one individual to another individual. Okay, so this is how जो next जो इम्पोर्टेंट डेवलपमेंट्स आ रहे हैं इन द फील्ड ऑफ लिटरेरी क्रिटिसिज्म, दैट इज पोस्ट स्ट्रक्चरलिज्म. ये जो सस्योर का आइडिया है, सस्योर की जो फिलोसफी है, उसको हम लोग स्ट्रक्चरलिस्ट फिलोसफी कहते हैं, जिसमें कि वो मानते हैं कि लैंग्वेज इज अ स्ट्रक्चर एंड लैंग्वेज का हर एक यूनिट जो है वो बाकी यूनिट से एक स्ट्रक्चर में जुड़ा हुआ है, एक स्ट्रक्चर में बंधा हुआ है, और ये स्ट्रक्चर जो है ये आर्बिट्ररीली शुरू होता है लेकिन कन्वेंशन के साथ फिर वो बंध जाता है. एंड देन देर आर स्ट्रक्चर्स ऑफ ग्रामर, देर आर रूल्स ऑफ ग्रामर, है ना, कि कैसे हम लोग चीज़ों को सिंटैग्मेटिक या पैराडिग्मेटिक ऑर्डर में अरेंज करते हैं. तो ऐसे रूल्स हैं ग्रामर के, एंड ये सारे स्ट्रक्चर में लैंग्वेज बंधा हुआ है. और अगर हम किसी सेंटेंस की मीनिंग अगर हम चाहते हैं डिस्कवर करना, तो वो मीनिंग हमको इसी स्ट्रक्चर में मिलेगी. दिस इज व्हाट Saussure इज टॉकिंग अबाउट. ऑब्वियसली कोई भी फिलोसफी अपने आप में फाइनल नहीं होती है, एंड हर एक फिलोसफी के फिर रिबटल्स आते हैं, उस पर और क्रिटिकल डेवलपमेंट्स आते हैं. सिमिलरली Saussure की फिलोसफी भी चैलेंज हुई, एंड फॉलोइंग Saussure's ideas there came up a philosophical movement which was known as post structuralism. पोस्ट आफ्टर, बाद में. तो स्ट्रक्चरलिज्म के बाद जो मूवमेंट आया केम टू बी नोन एज पोस्ट स्ट्रक्चरलिज्म, जिसमें कि ये कहा गया कि स्ट्रक्चर तो है लेकिन ये स्ट्रक्चर टेनेबल नहीं है, ये स्ट्रक्चर वैलिड नहीं है, ये स्ट्रक्चर स्टेबल नहीं है, ये बहुत ही लूज है, ये आपस में जो है इसके एलिमेंट्स जो है बहुत लूजली जुड़ी हुई है. एट एनी पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम दे कैन कम ऑफ, पोस्ट स्ट्रक्चरलिज्म से ही डीकंस्ट्रक्शन का आइडिया आता है कि मीनिंग फिक्स नहीं है, हम मीनिंग को बहुत वेज में रीड कर सकते हैं. These are things which we will discuss tomorrow. So deconstruction का idea आता है, and then deconstruction से फिर you realize that deconstruction gives liberty to a host of critical perspectives which come forward in the form of feminism and Marxism and all that. ठीक है. तो आज जो है basically we have tried to talk about T.S. Eliot, and we have tried to talk about the new school of criticism, new criticism. And we have tried to talk about structuralism, particularly Saussure's ideas on structuralism. Tomorrow, what we will try to discuss is we will try to discuss deconstruction. कैसे ये relationships break या deconstruct हो सकते हैं. And then we will talk about the other schools. तो कल we will come to an end of what of this introductory survey that we are trying to do for our paper. Okay, so I stop here today. And I'm of course now open to questions. You can either type your questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself one at a time and ask your question. Yes, over to you.
Ma'am, I have one question, ma'am.
Yes, please introduce yourself before asking your question, because
Yes.
I cannot see you.
Yes, ma'am. Myself, Vishal.
Okay.
Ma'am, my question is that, ma'am, as you told that we no need to put the literatures in literature, the poet's background or any writer's background. Is it we can't do this, ma'am, while we are putting our answers in examination or anywhere else?
What is your question? That you cannot, but should you use the writer's background or not?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
No, I said it is a method. It is a method, and it is very much in use today also. It is a method which is very much in use. I was just talking about how there are people who tried to go away, to distance themselves from this method and develop an alternative method of critical appreciation, which they call practical criticism. तो ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि ये सही है या ये गलत है. दोनों methods हैं. Of course, you can use it. It is still we also use it in our classrooms. That is how. Maybe tomorrow if I'm required to teach you a text, हम भी शायद वैसे ही करेंगे. तो ऐसी बात नहीं है, आप दोनों को आपको बैलेंस करके यूज करना है. You talk about the writer also wherever it is relevant to the text, and you have to concentrate on the text also. Right?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes. Please mute yourself after you finish asking your question and allow someone else. Okay, we have a question. Prativa Ranjan, she says, can we write the answer in our... Of course, you will write the answer in your own language. Why not? It is up to you.
Ma'am, I want to ask a question.
Puch.
Ma'am, at first I would like to introduce myself. I am from Burkunda. and it is merely a town, but I'm just blessed to have you. Uh, just blessed to have you.
You
In
have
this
to give me your
privilege.
name also, child.
Oh, my name is Mehzabeen Malika.
Okay, Mehzabeen. Yes.
Yes. So,
Hmm.
ma'am, actually, I would like to thank you for the nice explication, basically. So, after that, I would like to ask that being a teacher, okay, so we are compelled to explain a poem. One may
Being
not
a
have
teacher,
a
yes, being a teacher. Please
yes, ma'am.
begin from there.
Yes, ma'am. Fortunately, I'm a teacher.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, my question is,
Fortunately,
ma'am, yes, fortunately,
yes,
I love to
fortunately,
teach.
not unfortunately. Yes.
No, no,
Hmm.
fortunately, I want to be a
Hmm.
teacher. So,
Hmm.
my question is, ma'am, that being a teacher, we are compelled to explain a poem. One may not
Yes.
have one may not have a literary the knowledge of literary devices where you just mention personification, metaphor, antithesis, anaphor, and so many literary devices. So if we just take the support of biographical criticism to define our poetry, how does it help us? Or what do you think in your opinion? What do you think in your opinion is the best way to explain a poem? Is it the new criticism or the biographical criticism? Because it is not possible to
No,
just know the entire knowledge of the poets. There are so many poets, so is it not possible to have all the things in our mind?
I get you. You see, it depends. Number one, it will depend, of course, on the level of students that you are teaching, right? So, if we are teaching, sometimes same text, is included
Comprehension
in
analysis
schools.
are totals of criticism.
Somebody singing also. People are singing, people are humming. Quite interesting to hear you all do that. But, you know, that will distract me. You are all welcome to sing, but it will distract me unless you want me to stop and hear you. Yes. So, see, Mehzabin, it will depend upon, of course, the level of students that you are teaching. Sometimes we have a same text for, high school also. We have it in your undergraduate syllabus also. You'll have it in your postgraduate syllabus also. So, at every level, the teaching of the text would be different, right? So, much also depends upon the audience that you are catering to. For example, I am teaching IGNU students who I know come from a diverse background. There
Yeah.
are people who are coming in from commerce and from science, and people who have not done a bachelor's degree in English literature. So I have to go down for the basics for such students, so that they do not feel completely alienated from what I'm saying. But of course, if I'm teaching a master's students in a university where they have already done a graduation, they have done a bachelor's degree in English, of course the way I teach would be very different, है ना? So
Yes, ma'am.
it depends. अगर आप बहुत छोटे बच्चों को पढ़ा रहे हैं, अगर आप स्कूल गोइंग स्टूडेंट्स को पढ़ा रहे हैं, you cannot expect them to do a very close reading as such. हम लोग जिस तरह की क्लोज रीडिंग की बात करते हैं और हम लैंग्वेज में उनको बहुत चीज़ों डिटेक्टिव बना देते हैं कि आप लैंग्वेज में ये ढूंढिए, वो ढूंढिए, वो ढूंढिए, तो बहुत छोटे बच्चों के लिए इट इज नॉट पॉसिबल. Maybe you can hint to them that is how it develops. That's not possible. But when we are teaching, undergraduates and we are teaching postgraduates, of course, we expect them, particularly if they are in the field of literature, we expect that they will pay more attention to language than others do. सो एक साइंस स्टूडेंट के लिए शायद लैंग्वेज एक न्यूट्रल मीडियम है जिसमें कि वो अपनी थियरीज बता रहा है, लेकिन लिटरेचर स्टूडेंट होने के नाते हम लोगों को ये समझना पड़ेगा कि लैंग्वेज खुद अपने में एक बहुत कॉन्फ्लिक्टेड मीडियम है, और उसकी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स को, उसके फॉल्ट लाइंस को, उसके वर्चूज को, शॉर्टकमिंग्स को पहचानना शायद हम लोगों को सिखाया जाना चाहिए यूनिवर्सिटी क्लासरूम्स में, राइट?
Yes, ma'am.
ओके.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, last question. Okay, ma'am. The last question is to me कि ठीक है, ये सब हो जाता है, ठीक है, लेकिन मुझे पता है मैम कि जब हम किसी पोएम को क्रिटिकली एग्जामिन करते हैं तो हमारा व्यू इवेल्युएटर से अलग हो सकता है.
बिल्कुल हो सकता है, बिल्कुल हो
बिल्कुल हो
सकता
सकता है,
है.
because I do remember very well that once Shashi Tharoor just give a remark on Narendra Modi sir about a scorpion on a Shivlinga. Okay, so so that statement was taken in a different way where the person did not understand the metaphors and he just said this is actually the bad thing was said for the God, you know, so that, but the issue was quite different from that opinion. So मेरा सवाल है मैम कि यदि हम ऐसा करते हैं कि हमारा जो भी एक्सप्लिकेशन होगा, व्याख्या होगा, वो इवेल्युएटर से यदि अलग हो जाता है, तो मार्क्स पर इसका क्या असर हो सकता है?
कुछ नहीं, क्यों असर पड़ेगा? मतलब लिटरेचर में तो वी आर ऑफ कोर्स वी आर एनकरेजिंग स्टूडेंट्स टू कम अप विद न्यू इंटरप्रिटेशंस. इवैल्यूएटर का इंटरप्रिटेशन डज नॉट काउंट एट ऑल. एंड आई बिलीव दैट व्हेन समवन इज इवैल्यूएटिंग यू यू नो एज एन एग्जामिनर, तो वो ये नहीं देख रहा है कि आपकी स्टेटमेंट उसके स्टेटमेंट से टैली कर रही है कि नहीं. वो ये देख रहा है कि आपके अपने स्टेटमेंट में कोहेरेंस है या नहीं. आप जो खुद कह रहे हैं, अगर आप उससे कन्विंस्ड हैं और अगर आप उसको कन्विंसिंगली प्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं, तो ऑब्वियसली ऑल मार्क्स गो टू यू. देयर इज नो रीजन फॉर डिडक्टिंग मार्क्स. वो हम एज इवैल्यूएटर अगर हम इवैल्यूएट करें तो हम बिल्कुल ये नहीं देख रहे हैं कि आप जो सोच रहे हैं वो मेरी थिंकिंग से कंपैटिबल है या नहीं. हम यहाँ देख रहे हैं कि आपकी अपनी थिंकिंग कोहेरेंटली ऑर्गेनाइज्ड है या नहीं. आप अपनी बात अच्छे से समझ रहे हैं, आप अपनी बात को अच्छे से पुट फॉरवर्ड कर रहे हैं. दैट इज इनफ फॉर अ गुड आंसर. We do not need anything else. So do not let that bother you. This is matlab literature at least is a democratic world where you are free to disagree, and unless there is disagreement, so development nahi hoga. We are looking for disagreements. We are looking for new ways of creating meaning. So let this not bother you at all. Okay, you are free to create your own meanings, discuss them, but you have to discuss them convincingly. इस तरह से डिस्कस करो कि हम भी कन्विंस्ड हो जाएं कि तुम जो कह रहे हो वो सही कह रहे हो, राइट? या उसमें कोई वैलिडिटी है,
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes. I have Mayuk Sandeep who is saying almost the same thing. Can I give my own opinion? Of course, you are invited to give your own opinion. We are, the best thing would be to give your own opinion without giving borrowed opinions. But then हम लोग सब स्टूडेंट्स ही हैं. जिस भी लेवल पर आप पढ़ाई कर रहे हैं, आप एक स्टूडेंट हैं, एंड इस लेवल पर वी आर नॉट एक्सपेक्टेड व्हेन वी आर डूइंग अ कोर्स. जाहिर है अगर हम एक कोर्स कर रहे हैं तो वो कोर्स हमको वही सिखा रहा है जो हमको नहीं आता है ना. तो एट दिस स्टेज हमको ये मानकर चलना पड़ेगा कि हमको नहीं आता है, एंड देयरफॉर हम कितने कॉम्पिटेंट हैं बिल्कुल अपना ओपिनियन देने के लिए, इरेस्पेक्टिव ऑफ the opinion of others. ये थोड़ा देखना पड़ेगा. You have to strike a balance. अपना opinion दो, but you should also try to buttress it, try to strengthen it by the opinion of important people, by the opinion of good critics. So for example, आप T.S. Eliot का opinion cite करो, and then आप अपने words में explain करो why you support this particular opinion. है ना? अभी हम लोग क्योंकि सारे लोग learners हैं, we are learners at this stage, and हम लोग learner इसीलिए हैं क्योंकि अभी तक हम लोग expert बने नहीं हैं. तो अगर हम लर्नर हैं तो हमको लर्न करने के लिए जाहिर है कि हमको अच्छे टीचर्स को फॉलो करना पड़ेगा. सो व्हेन यू आर ट्राइंग टू गिव योर ओपिनियन, लेट इट नॉट बी एंटायरली योर ओन ओपिनियन. ट्राई टू kind of buttress it, try to strengthen it with opinions borrowed from good books, good writers. Do you get me, Sandeep? Mayuk Sandeep, do you get me?
Ma'am,
Yes.
this is Jaya from
Yes, Jaya.
From Garhwa. I have a question.
Yes.
As we know, comparison and analysis are two tools of criticism. Then, can we compare an English poem to poem of another language? What kind of comparison we should do?
Yes, of course, you can compare. Would depend upon, for example, there has to be some basis for a comparative study, है ना? कोई भी comparative study करने के लिए कोई एक basis चाहिए. तो for example, thematic comparison हो सकता है ना? There can be a thematic comparison.
We have a question. Critically comment on Wordsworth's definition of poetry. Poetry is an spontaneous overflow of powerful feeling. Then what kind of comparison we should do? Can we compare it with any Hindi poet's definition of poetry and same meaning?
देखो यहाँ पर when we are यहाँ पर when we are encountering Wordsworth, we are encountering Wordsworth less as a poet and more as a critic. अगर आप literary criticism के पेपर में Wordsworth को पढ़ रहे हैं या T.S. Eliot को पढ़ रहे हैं, ठीक है, इनकी बाकी भी अचीवमेंट्स हैं, बट यहाँ पर हम इनको एज अ क्रिटिक पढ़ रहे हैं. तो आप वर्ड्सवर्थ के बारे में एज अ क्रिटिक बात करेंगे एंड तो इस तरह से अगर आपको कंपेयर करना है, यू कैन कंपेयर वर्ड्सवर्थ विथ सम अदर क्रिटिक, ठीक है?
Critic.
तो किसी और क्रिटिक से आप कंपेयर कर सकते हैं, इट वुड बी बेटर. पोएट से भी आई डू नॉट से दैट यू कैन नॉट कंपेयर, बट जब हम कंपैरेटिव स्टडीज करते हैं तो देयर हैज टू बी अ जस्टिफिकेशन फॉर द कंपैरिजन, है ना? या वो थीमेटिकली रिलेटेड होंगे, या तो फॉर एग्जांपल जब हम वर्ड्सवर्थ के बारे में बात करते हैं, हम जाहिर है हम बाकी रोमांटिक्स के बारे में भी बात कर सकते हैं. वी कैन टॉक अबाउट से कोलरिज, who at first agreed and then later on disagreed with Wordsworth's ideas in Biographia Literaria. तो जब हम वर्ड्सवर्थ को एज अ क्रिटिक इवैल्यूएट कर रहे हैं, हम लोग में भी कोलरिज को इस डिस्कशन में ला सकते हैं और कह सकते हैं कि कोलरिज कैसे ऐसे ओपिनियंस थे, एंड दीज आर द पॉइंट्स वेयर यू नो कोलरिज डाइवर्ज्ड फ्रॉम वर्ड्सवर्थ. तो ऐसा हम कह सकते हैं. हम उसको जो है उसके फॉर एग्जांपल स्पॉन्टेनियस ओवरफ्लो को जो है हम किसी और रोमांटिक से भी रिलेट कर सकते हैं, फ्रेंच रोमांटिक से, जर्मन रोमांटिक से भी हम रिलेट कर सकते हैं. तो कंपैरेटिव कर तो सकते हैं. यूं तो देखो किसी के साथ भी किसी का कंपैरेटिव स्टडी किया जा सकता है, बट देयर हैज टू बी यू नो अ वैलिडिटी, अ वैलिडेशन फॉर व्हाई यू आर कंपेयरिंग सो एंड सो टू सो एंड सो. तो या थीमेटिकली हो, या तो सेम एज के लोग हों, है ना, contemporaries, तो हम उनको कंपेयर कर सकते हैं. They may be writing similar things, तो उस हिसाब से based on the kind of their output हम कंपेयर कर सकते हैं. ठीक है? So you can compare provided you offer some kind of a legitimate basis, you know, for making such comparisons. Yes, we have other questions.
Thank you,
you can
ma'am.
unmute. Thank you. You can please unmute and ask your question. Okay. Vijay Lakshmi, what does she say? Yes, Vijay Lakshmi, if you could unmute and ask your question.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, I want to ask that from where we can get important line given by important critic? Is there is any collection?
नहीं, ऐसे कोट्स का तो कलेक्शन नहीं है, but then almost you know, तो you can get anything on Google these days. So if you're looking for something specific, for example आपको T.S. Eliot की कोट्स चाहिए, so and so essay से, तो आपको तो ऑलमोस्ट सारे एसेज आजकल ऑनलाइन फ्री मिल जाएंगे. ये जो जमाना जो हम लोग पढ़ रहे हैं, you know, 20th century, early 20th century, ऑलमोस्ट सारे जो क्रिटिकल मटेरियल है इनके पब्लिकेशन से, ये सब अभी कॉपीराइट फ्री हैं. तो आई थिंक इफ यू आर लुकिंग फॉर अ पर्टिकुलर टेक्स्ट, इट विल बी अवेलेबल ऑनलाइन. बट देन अगर आप इम्पोर्टेंट लाइन्स की बात कर रहे हैं, तो इम्पोर्टेंट लाइन्स will be there, or some important lines will certainly be there in the books on literary criticism which you plan to read. कोई अगर आप बुक लेते हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल M.A.R. हबीब की बुक आती है, लिटरेरी क्रिटिसिज्म फ्रॉम प्लेटो टू द प्रेजेंट. इस तरह से बहुत सारे लिटरेरी क्रिटिसिज्म पर बुक्स आती है. यू हैव ऑक्सफोर्ड कंपेनियन टू लिटरेरी क्रिटिसिज्म, कैम्ब्रिज कंपेनियन, तो कुछ तो उसमें भी आपको लाइन्स मिल जाएंगी. बट देन अगर आप स्पेसिफिक टेक्स्ट के लाइंस ढूंढ रहे हैं, तो टेक्स्ट सारी ऑलमोस्ट कॉपीराइट फ्री हैं. You just type the name of the writer and the text and it should be available to you, right?
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Then you have Shubham and Deepika asking the same question about syntagmatic and paradigmatic structures. So I said that syntagmatic structures would be a connection between the same things, right? फॉर एग्जाम्पल मान लो कि आप हम जो कपड़े पहनते हैं, है ना, तो वी हैव एक हम लोग ऊपर का कपड़ा पहनते हैं, विच इन द केस ऑफ मेन वुड बी टी शर्ट्स एंड कुर्ताज एंड शर्ट्स, है ना. विमेन के लिए तो ऑफ कोर्स देयर आर अ वैरायटी ऑफ ड्रेसेस दैट यू कैन वेयर. एंड देन हम लोग जो नीचे का लोअर पहनते हैं, वुड कुड बी यू नो जीन्स और लेगिंग्स और पैलेजोज और शराराज और गराराज और स्कर्ट्स और you know so many. तो जब हम जितने सारे सेम चीजों के बीच में जो कनेक्शन है, so for example the connection that the shirt will share with the t-shirt will share with the kurta, this will be a syntagmatic connection, जिसमें से आप तीनों में से किसी को भी चूज कर सकते हो. तो आप शर्ट भी पहन सकते हो, आप टी शर्ट भी पहन सकते हो, आप कुर्ता भी पहन सकते हो. सिमिलरली आपको फिर दूसरे लेवल ऑफ क्लोथिंग में से भी फिर कुछ चूज करना पड़ेगा. You can choose a sharara also, you can choose a jeans also, you can choose a leggings also, you can choose a trouser also. तो आप जब पहनोगे तो वो जो पहनना होगा वो पैराडिग्मेटिक ऑर्डर में होगा. You have to wear a shirt and a trouser, or you have to wear a maybe kurta and a palazzo. आप एक शर्ट और एक कुर्ता नहीं पहन सकते हैं, right? So syntagmatic relationship is a relationship which is shared among the same class of objects. Paradigmatic relationship is a relationship which is shared among different classes of objects. So the relationship that the sharara will share to your kurta will be a paradigmatic relationship. But the relationship which the sharara will share to your palazzo would be a syntagmatic relationship. Is that clear? Samajh mein aaya? Please type yes if you understood.
Yes, ma'am. Is it clear? It is clear, right?
Okay, good, good. So we had 2 questions related to that. Then, whose convention did Saussure follow, Monica? Now, Saussure was not following any convention. He was establishing a convention. Before Saussure, nobody had stated, that language is a structure. It is Saussure who came up with the idea that language has to be understood like a sign system. It is also a system of signs. It is also a system of signifiers and signifieds. It is arbitrary and establishes itself through convention. So Saussure was not following any convention. He was giving a new idea which changed many things. Saussure was a very, very important figure. In fact, he's one of the 5 people who is believed to have ushered in what you call modernism. तो मॉडर्निज्म अगर एक कल्चरल मूवमेंट है तो उस मॉडर्निज्म के आर्किटेक्ट्स में Saussure was a very important figure who threw the entire world into doubt about the the identity of language. उन्होंने language को ही question किया कि language जिसके बारे में लोग जिसको हम लोग taken for granted लेते थे, कह दिया तो कह दिया, but कह दिया फिर भी नहीं समझे is something that nobody bothered to understand why. And Saussure, he threw into question the very identity of language as a stable system through his ideas. So Saussure was, he was a philosopher who was giving us something which was very new. He was not following any conventions. Okay, so I hope that satisfies you, Monica. I do not see any other questions. If there are any other questions, please, you can unmute and ask questions. Yes, language, the arrangement of words into sentences is a paradigmatic structure. क्योंकि as I said कि सारे nouns जो relationship share करेंगे वो syntagmatic relationship होगा, सारे articles जो relationship share करेंगे वो syntagmatic relationship होगा, सारे adjectives जो relationship share करेंगे वो भी syntagmatic relationship होगा. But सिर्फ article से या सिर्फ noun से या सिर्फ adjective से एक sentence नहीं बन सकता, है ना? Sentence बनाने के लिए we will need everything. We will need an article, we will need a noun, we will need a verb, we will need an adjective. तो वो जो sentence बनेगा वो एक paradigmatic order में ही arranged होगा. These are the rules of grammar, right? Yes. So if there are any more questions, I would request you to unmute and ask. If there are no more questions, then we call it a day today. So we have covered from Matthew Arnold onwards to, we have come as far as T.S. Eliot and the new literary critics and structuralism, Saussure, we have done. So next class, that is tomorrow, again we meet at 3:30 and we will be talking about deconstruction. And from deconstruction, we will go onwards. Yes.
Ma'am, can we...
Yes, who is this?
Ma'am, Vishal is speaking.
Huh.
Ma'am, can we get the audio which you have explained?
Audio which I have explained? Nahi samjhi.
Ma'am,
the recording for this session?
Yes, ma'am.
You will have to contact, the IGNOU staff for this. I'm sure Jamshed will be able to help you out. Okay. So,
ma'am, we don't have any contact number to contact for any person.
Jamshed, can you hear them? Jamshed, सुन पा रहे हो इन लोगों को?
हाँ मैम, हम सुन पा रहे हैं. मैम, इन लोगों को क्लासेस चल रहे हैं ना, ये लास्ट क्लासेस से पहले सारा वीडियो और ऑडियो का लिंक दे दिया जाएगा जो हम लोग के करीम सिटी कॉलेज के इग्नू के वेबसाइट पे मिल रहा है.
मींस कि हम लोगों को इग्नू के साइट पे जाकर के
Karim City College, this session is being conducted by the IGNOU Regional Center of Karim City College जमशेदपुर. तो करीम सिटी कॉलेज जमशेदपुर के वेबसाइट पर आपको इग्नू का सेक्शन मिलेगा जहाँ पर probably they will be uploading recordings of these lectures. तो आपको audio script जो है वहाँ से मिल जाएगा. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay. So
Hello.
we call it a day then. Yes.
Ma'am, the block first unit 5, Indian aesthetics.
What's tomorrow topics for discussion?
पहले introduce करो अपने आप को.
I'm Pooja. Hello.
See, a good way would be to so a good way would be to wish me first and then say that you are Pooja speaking from so and so place, and then put your question, because see, we are not able to interact physically, so come se kam when you are interacting virtually I should be able to remember your names later on, hai na? So that is why I asked you to introduce yourself.
I live in Ranchi.
Yes.
Ma'am, in unit 5, Indian aesthetics. When it will be discussed?
Indian, ये तो नहीं कह सकते when it will be discussed. I do not know. It will depend upon your learning pace, how much you are absorbing. So I do not know as such when it will be discussed. So if you are not planning to attend every session, then maybe at the end of it you can check on your you can check the website and see when it has been discussed. अभी से तो हमने इस तरह की कोई planning नहीं की है कि कब क्या discuss करना है. I'm trying merely to flow along with the pace and to adjust, your pace to mine. Abhi bhi isme bhi there are people who feel that I'm going a little too fast. So let us see. We will hopefully, cover as much as is possible. Okay then, students, see you tomorrow. So tomorrow we will be talking about deconstruction. Yes, Deepika, I'm from Kareem City College, Department of English. So we meet tomorrow. We'll be talking about deconstruction until the end, which will complete, the survey, the introductory survey that we are doing for the paper on literary criticism. Right? So thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am.
Keep
Thank
safe.
you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. There is an announcement, I think.
Thank you. Thank you so much.